Hello, I'm Cameron Martis, your TA for ATM 101 here at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. In this second investigation, we're going to be learning how to use the weather equipment provided with the kit for the investigations this semester. We're going to start trying to set up our weather station with our barometer and our digital thermometer. First of all, you need to find a suitable site for setting up this equipment. The site needs to be in the shade so that the thermometer is not affected by the sunlight, because if the sunlight hits the thermometer probes, then the temperature it reads will be higher than the actual temperature. You want to set these also in a location where they're not likely to be disturbed, because you're going to be leaving these out next week when you take your week weather observations for the entire week. This is important because we want to get maximum and minimum temperature data for each day in the week, and so the thermometer has to be outside the entire time. You can set your thermometer and barometer either on a flat surface or on a wall. Here I have a flat surface to set them on. Just set them down and make sure that for the thermometer, your probes, that the metal tips on the end of these white wires are not touching the surface that they're set on, but that they are away and hanging out into the air. And just once again, make sure they're not going to be disturbed during the time they're setting here. I much prefer hanging the instruments on a wall, as we do here in Fairbanks. We have a special structure built for hanging the weather instruments on. You don't have to have a special structure, just the wall of a house or a shed will do just fine. But your instruments have loops and holes that are nicely positioned for hanging the instruments up. And if you hang them up, that inhibits them, it fastens them better, and it inhibits them from being messed with by little children or animals, because you're going to be leaving these instruments out for an entire week at a time. Make sure when you hang your instruments out that they're on a north-facing wall. That way the sunlight doesn't hit the thermometer probes and make a higher temperature. You need to keep them shaded. I also have here a shelf over top. If you can find a place to hang them under a shelf or an eave on an exterior wall, that would help keep the snow off and just keep them sheltered from the weather. Make sure when you hang your instruments out, though, before you take your first weather observations, that you leave them out for some time before taking your first measurements. The instruments have to acclimate to the outside temperature before you can take the measurements. When you first have them inside, they'll be reading the inside temperature. If it's warm outside, then you can probably take your measurements after about 10 or 15 minutes of them being outside. But if it's colder outside, you might need to leave them out for a half an hour or longer before they acclimate to the environmental temperature. Just look at the display, and if it's stable over a period of several minutes, then go ahead and take your measurements. But if it's still changing, wait for it to stabilize, the temperature on your thermometer to stabilize, and then you can go ahead and take your first weather observations. Well, good luck taking your first instrument weather observations, and I look forward to seeing what your weather was like in this second week of class.